Hey, happy Friday. This week I tried Samsung's brand new OneUI 7 and I kinda liked it. Intel fired their own CEO and then also launched brand new graphics cards, and China escalated the chip wars with export bans. Welcome to the Friday Checkout. This video was sponsored by my streaming service, Nebula. Okay, for my first story of the week, Samsung has released OneUI 7 after loads of delays, and while I've lately been complaining about how slowly the company has been moving with everything, I have to say I kinda like what I'm seeing here for once. Right off the bat, there's an overhauled design with new icons and widgets that all look a little less flat and also a little more modern. I don't love or hate this, but I do overall like it. The notification drawer is now split in two, which seems to be the trend for many Android skins these days. Thankfully, you can swipe left and right to switch between them, and you can also customize pretty much everything, so most people should get to a place that they like. The recent apps menu is overhauled, and instead of these side-by-side cards, you now get this new and prettier animation. And Samsung claims animations in general were a big focus, with the company claiming that they improved the smoothness across the OS. Obviously, this requires long-term testing, but so far it seems promising. I even did some slow-mo test for you app opening and closing wizards, and here you go. Perhaps the most interesting addition to me is that they now have what they call the Now bar, which is basically Samsung's take on Apple's Dynamic Island. It's a sort of unified UI to show you the ongoing processes of various apps like the countdown clock, music being played, or an active voice recording. Those then either go in the notification drawer like that, from where you can expand them, or they can even show up on the always on display or the lock screen, live updating the status in a unified manner. Pretty cool. I like that they managed to take the core idea of the Dynamic Island and they created their own version of it without having to copy the exact implementation. Besides that, the camera app has also been updated, for example by moving the controls closer to your thumb and a few other small things. And there's also a raw image editor that specifically lets you tweak raw images right on your phone. Plus you now also have live transcriptions for phone calls, which seems very handy for people who, unlike me, do more than 3 phone calls a year. Overall, this feels like a pretty noticeable facelift, plus there's also quite a few thoughtful features, so I like this. The update is in beta form on the Galaxy S24 series for now, in some countries at least, and it's gonna come to more countries and more devices, I guess at some point. Okay, and for my second story of the week, Intel had a wild week. They more or less fired their CEO and then also that same week released brand new graphics cards. So first, Pat Gelsinger, quote, retired, effective immediately, and 2 co-CEOs stepped up to run the company while they were looking for a replacement. You don't need to be a corporate lawyer to understand that that is basically him getting fired and the board wanting to get rid of him so badly they did so without even taking the time to find a successor first. Reuters said that, quote, the board decided that the pace of his costly plan to turn around Intel's fortunes was not quick enough, and I of course released an entire in-depth breakdown of that very turnaround plan like a week ago, so if you want to learn those details, that's in the description. Anyway, there's now a frantic hunt for a new CEO and a new direction, with chip veterans like Lip Bhutan being considered. The company's public statements have so far been that they're not going to dramatically shift course after the firing, but I personally find that a little bit hard to imagine. First, companies of course can't announce that they'll make radical changes until they know what those radical changes are, which they only know once they have a new CEO. And second, if they fundamentally believed that the current direction was good, they wouldn't have fired its chief architect like this. Pat's whole plan was to go all in on manufacturing, and so in my opinion, softening investments here is what is at risk the most. As a result, the stock of the manufacturing competitor TSMC had a fantastic week, and so the market seems to agree with me. And my personal opinion is that firing Pat right now, when we're so close to 18A, the supposed savior of Intel's manufacturing business, it means that either the board is like not very bright and they're kind of just giving up on the whole plan pretty close to the finish line, or it means that the board thinks that 18A isn't going to be as good as perhaps Pat was selling it to be. But hey, while all of that was happening, Intel also released 2 brand new GPUs codenamed Battlemage this week, the Arc B580 and B570, which are kind of lower mid-range cards designed to beat the likes of the Nvidia 4060. They cost $249 and $219 respectively, and Intel's own numbers claim that they are about 10% faster than the 4060, while also costing less. Intel also made big updates to XeSS, the company's own competitor to Nvidia's DLSS, and overall the cards look somewhat competitive. That said, Nvidia and AMD are both about to release their next generation cards that are supposed to compete in this price category, so unless you really need a GPU for Christmas or something like that, I'd probably wait to see what those are like first. Okay, and for my third story of the week, China decided to turn up the heat in the trade wars. Specifically, China announced the ban of exports to the US on gallium, germanium, antimony, and other key high-tech materials in response to US chip sanctions. As a techie, you're probably most familiar with gallium, as that is what's used in GaN or gallium nitride chargers, but these materials are also used in a bunch of other products from TVs and phone screens, plus solar panels and radar equipment, plus a bunch of military equipment too. And it's a little hard to say exactly how big of a problem this is, but here's what I've been able to find. This year, China accounted for 59.2% of refined germanium output and 98.8% of refined gallium production, according to consultancy Project Blue. Gallium, for example, is apparently not rare at all, but refining it is both expensive and painful, and China has been the only one willing to do this on a large scale historically. In total, only around 320 tons of gallium are refined per year, and the US took 25 of those tons of gallium from China in 2022. The experts seem to agree that the primary impact of all of this will be that the prices of all of these materials will go up in the US, which will make US-based manufacturing less competitive, but we'll have to see how that plays out. Okay, and we start our release monitor with Xreal announcing the One and the One Pro smart glasses. Normally, I find this form factor pretty boring, but the interesting thing here is that they have what they claim to be a self-developed X1 chip, which should reduce latency and make processing faster. Next, the OpenWRT1 was released as an open-source Wi-Fi router. It costs $89 as a quote hacker-friendly device. It has 2 Ethernet ports, 3 USB ports, dual-band Wi-Fi 6, and also open-source hardware. Pretty cool. In our last release are the MSI Claw 8 AI Plus and Claw 7 AI Plus, which were just officially launched this week. I already tried these briefly at IFA, hence my videos, and these are, from what I can tell, the first handhelds to feature Intel's more energy-efficient Lunar Lake chips. They cost $899 and $799 respectively, and interestingly, they have Microsoft's Copilot Plus on board, if you want that while gaming or something. Actually, MSI says that you can just plug these devices into like a monitor and a keyboard and use them like a regular Windows PC, which makes a little bit more sense with Copilot. An AI PC in your gaming handheld. Anyway, and we start the brief with Mozilla getting a rebrand. We're talking about the parent company of Firefox, Thunderbird, and so on. And the green logo is simultaneously a flag, an M, and also basically a dinosaur. I don't know if this was necessary, but at least I don't hate it. So in terms of rebrandings these days, I guess that's a win. Okay, and next Humane said that they want to put the AI Pens software inside your phone, car, and smart speaker. If you realize that their operating system is basically a modified version of Android, I think that's extra funny. Like putting that on a phone, what a crazy idea. Okay, moving on, you might remember me talking about Huawei's non-Android based Harmony OS Next, which of course doesn't natively support Android apps. But fear not, you can now install this app from the Huawei App Store, which is basically Android in a virtual container that you can then run Android apps inside of. So it's an OS inside of an OS. A channel called LL Tech Reviews has a whole video on it, which I've linked to down below. And the short of it is that they kind of work, just of course with a lot of limitations like limited Google Play Store support, limited DRM content, etc. Still, not bad. Then, in potentially good news, a universal plug-and-charge protocol for EV charging is coming in 2025, and this is aiming to deliver a seamless charging experience without app signups or fobs by just letting you plug in and start charging apparently. At least for the US, that is, and let's see if this actually works in practice. And also this week, Amazon announced physical data transfer terminals for AWS. They described this as secure physical locations where you can bring your storage devices and upload data faster to the AWS cloud. So next time you find yourself needing to dump petabytes of files onto an AWS server, there's now a physical location for that. How good? And in wild news, Google's DeepMind lab is apparently now able to generate 3D worlds that appear playable, roughly like video games. They claim a character can walk around in them for like a minute before these worlds start to fall apart. It all looks a little rough, we're very light on the details, and you probably have to set half a rainforest on fire for it, but I guess somewhat cool. And not to be left out, OpenAI announced that it is kicking off a ship mess period, saying it will announce new features, products, and demos for 12 days. And the first announcement on day 1 was a full version of its O1 reasoning model for $200 a month. They claim that this version is significantly more accurate than other versions that they've put out in the past. Also, OpenAI claims that ChatGPT now has 300 million weekly active users, which is a lot. And talking of AI, Meta said that it will invest a pretty bonkers $10 billion to make the world's biggest data center in Louisiana. This should take the crown from Elon Musk's XAI data center, and I fully expect some kind of a cage match anytime soon. And while we're at Meta, Threads announced that you will now be able to follow users from other Fediverse servers who interacted with a post that you see on Threads. This basically means following Mastodon users from Threads. You still can't search for users, but we're making baby steps towards a more federated future. Okay, and since we are officially in the holiday seasons, if you're looking for a gift that your recipient will actually enjoy using and love, instead of just leaving it on a sad shelf somewhere, how about a gift card to Nebula? We have the cutest digital gift cards that you can get for your loved ones, or I guess for yourself, and you can either get it in a 1-year option, or if you really want to be generous, even a lifetime one. This instantly gives the recipient ad-free access to a ton of Nebula originals that are exclusive to the platform, like Tom Nicholas's fantastic documentary film called Boomers that is about how the baby boomer generation became so powerful, or 12 whole seasons of Jetlag, including the newest one that just started in Japan, and a whole lot more. I also have a ton of bonus videos and Nebula exclusive Q&A sessions at the end of every Friday checkout. Oh, and your gift or your subscription actively helps us make more and better content for you, because that's the simple deal. There's no ads, no shady tracking, just a simple exchange. You subscribe and we make more content. My link also brings the cost of Nebula down to just $36 a year with the annual plan, which is down from $60 with a generic link, plus it also lets Nebula know that I sent you. So be sure to use that link in the description or scan the QR code. And of course, the lifetime membership is always there for those who hate subscriptions. I hope you discover a lot of your new favorite videos on Nebula, as I often do. Happy watching, and I'll see you next Friday.